Parenting is hard. Few of us feel up to the task. The world is shifting, quickly and dramatically. All of us feel the changes affecting our families. The stress and pressure can be intense. We are here to help sort the good and the bad, provide insight, and bring hope. Welcome to Brilliantly Brave Parenting. We're so glad you stopped by.
Hi, and welcome to Brilliantly Brave Parenting. I am Pastor Brad Mathias here in the studio with...
I'm Robert Beeson.
Robert, we're marching to the end of season 7.
Isn't that amazing?
99 episodes.
It's actually, I remember the day that I came into your part of the office because we had a line drawn down the middle of a room, and that was your office, Miles.
And don't cross the line, yeah.
And I remember said, I think we should maybe look into podcasts. You're like, podcasting? What the heck? And now, think about that. Like, we're so far into it, and it's been so well received. It's kind of crazy that, you know.
Yeah.
And you become quite the pro at it.
I think it's first of all, I don't know what you want, but I think it went a little different than that. As I recall.
I don't know about that.
You were like hopping, skipping, like jumping. You were so excited, like a little kid who has to pee. You were jumping up and down.
Oh, really?
Like, we need to do a podcast. We really, please, kind of thing. Yeah, that's how it went.
Just agree to disagree.
And I was like, you know what? Everybody's doing a podcast. Why do we need to do a podcast? And you went into the whole thing. So, you know, you won my heart, which you always do that, but it took a while.
So what you're saying in a roundabout way, and I understand that you're insecure about this, but you're saying, Robert, you were right, is what you're saying.
As I look into the camera, Robert, you were right.
There you go.
Okay.
And here we are.
Do you feel better?
I feel great.
I think I've dealt with my insecurities. How about you?
No, I've known that for a long time, Brad.
In the office, in the studio today, right here with us, in the room. We don't have to ignore them. We can look at them. We can say hi.
Are two people that have been along the journey with us for about the extent of the time.
Oh, my gosh. And they put up with you even before I ever knew you.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is true.
They're even more of an expert on Robert Beeson than I am.
That's true.
Joey and Ann Ciccoline, welcome to Brilliantly Brave Parenting.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
It's great to have both of you here.
Yeah.
It is great. You know, Joey's been behind the scenes for this podcast as a producer and in the studio sound tech engineer, man of all trades. He's
guiding
MacGyver.
all sides of this. Yeah.
He's a Christian MacGyver.
Pretty much.
And, you know, Joey and Ann have these deep, deep roots in the Christian music world that go back, you know, decades.
Yep. To the 1800s, I think.
Oh, thanks.
Right.
You guys look great, by the way.
No, in all seriousness, they've been around the industry for a long time. I met Joey for the first time, Joey, what, 25 years ago?
Easily, if not more.
So Joey was the road manager for a group that I worked with called Jars of Clay. And so we originally connected there. And then when I started working with Michael W. Smith, he was the road manager and basically the right-hand guy to Michael. And so we've kind of, in the periphery, been around each other for so many years, right?
Yeah.
And know the story that we're going to talk of today. I remember vividly the season that you guys went through, and the whole industry, you know, was marked by the things that we're going to talk about today. But so through that, I got to know Ann a little bit, and it's just they've been really an anchor to the Christian music industry for so long. And so we're glad that you're going to be brave enough to talk to us about this, because we know that this is a very difficult thing to talk about.
Right. Well, we'll be brave. I'm not sure if we're going to be brilliant.
Yeah. Well.
Yes, and that's a good reminder to our audience that our title is tongue-in-cheek. Brilliant and brave is nothing that a parent feels ever when they're being a parent.
And just for the record, just to kind of cement something here, I didn't come up with the title. So I'm going to distance myself from that. Let's move along.
I'm going to look at the camera again. I'm going to say, Robert's right. That's correct. Yeah. I came up with the title because of a small group at the church that they attended with me, and we were actually praying about what should we call this podcast, and Tanya Grabby came up with this name.
Really?
Yep.
You didn't know that, Joey?
No.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I remember.
He always blamed you.
That's a likely story, actually. That makes a lot of sense.
Well, it was tossed in with a grocery list of things he was blaming you with.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
So, you know, and that's the reason that Madison, one of our sound assistants and production assistants from Texas believes you really do have an apple tattoo on your chest because she's been listening to the podcast all these years, and she thinks you really have a tattoo on your chest.
Well, there'll be a big reveal
On
the 100th episode.
100th episode. All right, awesome. Well, I mean, we're kind of dancing around a little bit. Some serious topic here, and I remember Joey when we were in a production planning meeting and we were thinking about the season and different guests that we could have and topics that we felt like would be really helpful for our audience to know about. And you brought up you and Ann's story of losing a child several decades ago, and how that has really fundamentally changed both your view of God, but also your marriage and your family. And we've had a lot of guests on over the last 6-7 seasons who've had different grief experiences. And I think you have some real wisdom, you and Ann, in how to walk through grief and ways that parents can grieve that are healthier than some of the things we've been hearing about on our show. So I want to open the door for you guys to tell us the story about your son and bring us up to speed in your own words, and then maybe we can ask some questions.
Okay.
Talk to us first about the medical facts and what happened, Ann.
You're medical.
Okay, that's my deal, I guess. Right. Well, it was 1996. Probably some of you who are watching were just toddlers at that point, but we had found out that we were pregnant with our 5th child, and it was a little scary. We had the year before lost a child during pregnancy at 4 months, and so there was some apprehension and anxiety going into this, and a whole lot of prayer. And so went for the normal, ultrasound at 5 months, and didn't hear anything from the doctor. Assumed everything was fine. Went in at 6 months. Doctor said, did the usual routine. And then I asked about the ultrasound report, which I think he read for the first time, and it indicated that there were some issues with our baby's heart.
And this is 5 months in?
5 months in.
Yeah.
So a few days later, they sent us up to another hospital to have an echo done by a pediatric cardiologist and confirmed that our son Noah was diagnosed with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. So basically, the left side of his heart hadn't developed correctly.
Wow.
And that once he was born, he could not live with his heart the way it was formed.
So you knew at about the 5 months into a 9-month pregnancy that you knew the end of the story, so to speak, that there was going to be heartache on the other end, and so that had to be
right. Definitely. I mean, our cardiologist was fantastic, and she, gave us some time to kind of digest what she was telling us, and, basically said that there were several options, that we could definitely choose to terminate the pregnancy. That was one of the options. There were 2 surgical options, a 3-step surgical procedure called the Norwood that could be done, or, excuse me, or a heart transplant ultimately would have probably been the other option. And the last thing she said to us, and you can choose what we call compassionate care. You can carry this baby to term and love it for the time that you have it, which could be a few hours to a week or more, and not do anything medically to intervene at that point. So Joe and I definitely went home and cried and prayed and just to kind of discern what it was that we felt God was leading us to do at this moment for our child.
That had to be just an enormous weight. I can't even put myself in that position. You hear about grief that comes and suddenly, but to know that you're faced with a life or death situation and you're going to have to kind of live through that. That's to someone that you haven't even met yet. Right. I mean, that's an enormous amount of weight. What if you can go back to that season, what held you guys? Ultimately, you can walk us through the choices that you made, but what held you guys together? I mean, did you deliberately do something as a couple that brought unity in facing this? Or was it just survival? I mean, you just, honestly, there's people that deal with it that sometimes.
I would think it was more survival.
Yeah.
Focusing, we tried our best to keep our focus, maybe Jesus-centered, Christ-centered, should I say. And then, but no, it was new. It was every step of the way.
Yeah.
It was...
one moment at a time.
Yeah, one moment at a time, another day. I mean, when we first found out we were pregnant, she said she wanted to name the baby Noah. I said, "What are you, crazy? You're not naming the baby Noah. I'm naming my baby James. It's James, And I'm out on the road with some people everybody knows, and we're going, no, we're not going to let that woman name our baby. No, we're not. And, as soon as she came over and told me, he said, Noah.
Okay, there you go.
You win.
Yeah.
It's not you win. Lord wins. That's what I felt.
Yeah.
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 Well, I want to make sure we keep up with this story. So at some point, then Noah was born.
Right. Yeah. Well, after that day, I think it was within a matter of days that we really felt certain that God was calling us to just, hopefully make it to pregnancy. There was always the slim chance he wouldn't make it to term. And to welcome him into the world and just love him for the time that we had. I still remember clearly the moment sitting on our back swing in our backyard, sitting down going, okay, so what are we going to do? And we just both, and I'm so thankful that we were both on the same page.
Right.
Yeah. And there was no disagreement or differing of opinions on just how we felt God wanted us to proceed.
And along with that, it would happen to be a small season in my life where I traveled a lot, but at this point I was home.
Mm-hmm.
As God would have it, that you could be there.
Yeah.
So you came to full term and gave birth, and Noah was born, and walk us through that experience. It had to be so bittersweet to see this beautiful.
Definitely. It was definitely bittersweet. It was just a holy moment. Our other kids were there. We had 3 children at the time. Our youngest was with some friends during labor, but our older 2 kids were there with us to be there when Noah came into the world. And he looked so perfect.
Right.
He's so perfect.
You couldn't tell, like from holding him, it was just.
So there was that moment of hope of, maybe God healed him. Because we were still holding on to that was possible.
Anything's possible, yeah.
And they did an echo and confirmed that indeed his heart was even, the syndrome was even worse than they had thought from the echo during pregnancy. But we had close friends come to the hospital. Our pastors of our church came at the time and baptized him for us there in the room he was born in. And it was sweet. It was just beautiful.
So how much time did you have with Noah?
Well, almost 3 days?
It was about 3.5 days.
Yeah, almost, around 3 days. For us, or at least for myself, sleep wasn't a big issue.
Yeah.
There wasn't no sleep.
Yeah.
Because you have limited amount of time, and it's just you want to take every minute in.
We went home from the hospital as soon as we could, set up with a hospice so that Noah could pass at home. And we didn't have to do this in the look of a hospital.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing few days. I mean, my family had flown in from different parts of the country to be with us. People close to us came to meet him at the house. The first night we were home, Joe had finally, I think, fallen asleep for a few minutes out of exhaustion.
I'm sure.
And I just lost it. I was just overcome with fear that I couldn't do this. And it's one of the few times in my life I just distinctly heard God say, I'm here, I'm with you. And that really carried me through the next season.
Yeah, I mean, when it came to the last hours, I mean, we had people in the hallway, the house praying, people on the front lawn.
Yeah. And people surrounded you with support and love, and
Yeah, we had it was a strange time too, because we had a dog that would eat you, and
He was a wild dog.
and the dog just laid down in the kitchen and never moved for 3 days.
wow. Almost
Yeah.
unsaid, but like out of respect for it and reverence for what
Yeah.
was happening in the home.
Sure. And there almost, I mean, we just almost felt like there was just an angelic presence with us in that time.
Yeah, I really did. Felt very strongly that there was something else other than just the two of us.
Yeah. I remember that season because, you peripherally, we were involved in each other's lives. And I remember people in the industry, all of us praying for you guys because, we knew how this ended. And so it was just, so I can tell you that there was a lot of people praying. And I'm so glad that you felt that as hard as it was to walk through this. Because there was a lot of people standing in community with you, and that's very fortunate that you felt that.
Yeah. Coming out of it, it took time. They say that men do things, bury themselves in work or something, and I went out in the garage and rebuilt this 1930s compressor for no reason at all. I just did this piece of junk, and I just
poured yourself into it.
Poured it. I mean,
Yeah.
things. I don't know why. I've never even turned the thing on.
To date?
It's back in the box.
Wow.
It just looks pretty. But and being, I don't know, different than me, did some counseling. Went to a grief counselor, right?
Right. Yeah. I actually, during pregnancy, when I found out about Noah, I started seeing a counselor who was fantastic. And he had himself lost a child. And so it was just very gentle and really helped me walk through that period. And when, there's just all these stages of grief. And so, when Noah died, he was at home with us. And, within a few days we had a service and it was amazing. All those people that had been praying for us, I mean, we're filled the church and we're out the door and literally pulled tour buses up to be there so that they could then leave to get on the road to the tours they needed to get to. So there was...
It was amazing. I was there.
Yeah.
And I can remember feeling, this is what unity feels like.
Yeah.
Because
definitely.
people just came together.
The
I mean,
church was there for us.
it was remarkable. And I mean, that's just a testimony to, God using tragedy and brokenness to bring a greater purpose. And it's not, we're not celebrating the fact that, or happy about the fact that Noah isn't with us today, but it's amazing to see what God does through that and bringing people together. A song was birthed out of this.
Yeah.
Michael and Amy, right?
Yeah, they wrote a song.
Wrote a song, Hello, Goodbye. And so those of you that are listening can go search that out and know that this is the origin of that story. Talk to us a little bit, because I know this just from some of the work that I do, but the importance of finding community that are going through the same thing. You were talking a little bit about this this grief.
Yeah, for me that was really important especially I think because those moments surrounding his life and his death were so full of love and support that when it got to be a week, 10 days, 2 weeks later, I was lost. And so a friend of mine had suggested that I try a support group that was at a hospital in Nashville for parents who'd lost babies during during pregnancy or shortly thereafter. And Joe, I think, was by that time already on the road.
Yeah.
And so she offered to go with me. There's no way I could have gone alone. So
Right.
always go with your friends.
At least
They need
initially,
somebody
until you
there
get,
with them.
yeah.
So that group was just amazing because it was to be able to sit into a room with, a dozen parents who had experienced the same thing. And for some of them, it was new and the pain was deep and they were raw. And then we had these wonderful facilitators who, their experience had been 8, 10, 12 years prior. And it just gave such hope that, okay, I can make it through this. I can live through this. I'm going to be forever changed. I'll never be the same person I was before it. But there is hope and there is a future. And for me, as a woman, I really needed that. And that group became just a lifeline to me for almost a year. And then I, for a decade after that, worked with the group, was on their board of directors and facilitated grief groups to try and help other parents along in their grief process.
But you would come home and tell me stories where, not details, but you would say things where you meet somebody new when it may have been a car accident or something that lost their child or whatever. And if their lives, because this wasn't per se an actual Christian counseling, their lives would seem so different, so hopeless, so empty,
Yeah.
I don't know how somebody could go through all this and not have a point of faith.
Right.
As I'm listening to you, and I've pastored with you for many years here in the Nashville area, and I know a lot of your story. Personally, I've seen the impact, but for our audience who's listening, there are parents right now who are finding out they just had their echocardiogram.
Yeah.
It's their 5-month mark,
Yeah.
and they're having to make decisions. They're having to decide, what would God have me do in this? And those are deeply personal, intimate, painful struggles within a marriage. And I am confident that you guys, having walked through this, experience Christ in a new way.
Definitely.
Because God always shows up in our storms, right? Like he comes across the water and stuff, and he reveals himself in a new way, and he says, peace, be still. He controls something in each of these uncontrollable circumstances.
Yes.
What is it, if you could, and I know I haven't prepped you, so I'm just throwing this at you, but looking back now, you've hindsight of 2 decades of God's faithfulness after your pain. What did you discover about Christ in this?
Yeah, definitely an even greater awareness of just his love for me and his faithfulness, that he's always present, even in those moments where it doesn't feel like it. I mean, there was a period of months after Noah died where I just felt like my prayers were hitting a brick wall, that there was just nobody out there responding to me. But yet the spirit within me I just had to persevere. And really my understanding of who God is and who we are as Christians and just what our life on this earth is about, was very different a year or two after Noah's death. Prior to that, I feel like I was pretty typical of a lot of Christians in our country, and that, and in that era too, the 90s, it was just, it was great to be a Christian. Everything, we were in the music industry and it was booming. I mean, everything was just good and abundant and easy in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
And so through this experience, I definitely learned that isn't the walk that God intends for us.
Yeah.
That we are all called to suffer as Christ suffered. And
Acquainted with grief.
amen.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I just came to a much deeper understanding of, Paul talks in Romans about we're to rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. That I just really had a new commitment to being present with the people in my life and with my church, to enter into not only their joy, but their grief with them.
What would you, unfortunately, in the last 60 days, we in the Christian industry have been rocked again by, someone that we know and love that lost their son. And I know that we're talking about Toby and Amanda. I know that they felt supported by all the people that not just attended the memorial, but just the love and prayer. And so we know that. But like you were saying, Ann, after the first 2 weeks have gone by and, the meal train ends and like all that, what would you tell those of us out there that are standing by and seeing people grieve? What can we do and what should we not do? I know there are some buzzwords that you hate to hear. So what are those? Because honestly, I think
we need to know. Yeah,
we need to know.
Mean well, but
because honestly, I think it's this with a lot of things in the church, like divorce and death. Is that it's not that we don't care. It's just we don't know what to do. And so help us with what would be a helpful way for us to engage with those going through grief.
Well, I think everybody. I was right there, right along with everybody. You think that you get to a certain point, and then they'll say, well, that'll be good. We'll pray for them and let them know. We'll give them some meals. And when that's done, they should have, here comes the buzzword, closure. And
not a good buzzword.
It's not a good buzzword because you never, and society just does that. Like, well, he grieved for 3 weeks. He should have closure by now. Or, they throw that word out there. And even longer times. I'm not saying 3 weeks. It could be a couple months. But the one thing I noticed, and we are all guilty of, is that when something happens, we all jump on the bandwagon, like you say. We get out the meal charts and cook the pot of sauce, and here we go.
Yeah.
And but for us, I think what we noticed was after about a good month, we felt very alone.
Yeah.
We felt very alone. It was like, maybe nobody even wanted to hear our story anymore. Okay,
they moved on.
They moved on. Yeah. Life moved on. Oh yeah. That was
awful. But
that was awful, and we remember that. But let's move on. And you know what? It doesn't move on, and it doesn't matter what the situation is. There'll be triggers that'll bring it back to memories.
Yeah. Sitting here, you guys are fighting. This is how many years, and it's still
23.
Right. And so, there are triggers all the time.
Sure. Yes.
And so, what can we do for those Tobys out there that as a body of Christ? What are things that we can do?
I know for Joe, he went on the road so soon after Noah died, and it really was a gift for him because he was surrounded by some young men who loved him and just wanted to listen, wanted him to tell their story, his story. And that is so crucial, just to be able to say, it was so important to be able to say Noah's name, to be able to talk about that little bit of time that we had with him, to be able to be with somebody who was willing to just be silent.
Yeah,
if I had no words, I couldn't hear anything from them, just to be present, and even just to remind me of their presence by a phone call, which usually was a message. I never picked up the phone.
Right.
Or an email or a card in the mail, just something saying, we remember and we're praying. I know one of the hardest things for me in the months following Noah's death was, I just had this this is just kind of me, but I was determined that I was going to grieve well, that for Noah and to glorify God. And so, I read everything I could get my hands on about grief. I talked to people I could about grief and the process. And obviously I prayed and had some counseling. But so I would say to people, there are a lot of resources out there. Do your homework. If you have someone close to you who's lost someone, read. There's so many people's stories out there about their losses and their grief.
And what helped them.
And what helped them.
Yeah.
And, just don't feel like you have to give us hope or say something to encourage us, because honestly, we didn't want that.
No.
Just
It was
be with you in
meaningless.
it.
Yeah.
That's good.
So one of the challenges with grief, especially this type of grief, where it's very intimate, very private, when the noise of your normal day subsides and you've sort of avoided talking about it, you've avoided the pain of that moment. Many couples explain that they have trouble in talking to each other about it, and they'll do anything but talk about it. And we know that's not healthy or helpful.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys break through that sort of impasse where there was that awkward, not sure I want to talk about this anymore because it's too painful? I don't even know what to call that, but I know it exists.
Well, first of all, we did everything the general counseling world told us not to do. And we built a house. We changed jobs. We had another child. We did it all. Okay, this is what you don't do. Okay, let's just do them. and
So your point is there's not a black and white.
Right, exactly. And you know, we survived. And I think what you're looking at is how do you survive past as life goes on and stuff. And I'll speak for myself. I don't know about Ann for sure, 100%. But yeah, you know, the time does make things feel a little better as time goes on. And as you get further and further, but you still remember things. You remember everything about it.
Yeah, I don't know that there was a lot of discussion. I think what was important was just, physically being present and being able to cry together. And I probably would have punched him if he'd been tried to do something to make me feel better, because I would have just resented that. I didn't want him to make me feel better.
You didn't want
him
him to comfort you.
Yeah, I wanted him to just be in
with
my
you in
pain
it.
with me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we also had 3 kids at the time. And our youngest was 4. So there was so much
A lot of activity.
that we needed to do, and we needed to care for them because they'd lost their brother. That, honestly, in a lot of respects, I don't know that we really helped each other through that first part of the season all that much. You had your the guys around you on the road who really were your support. I had my church and friends, and it's not that we were separate in it, but we just found what we needed in other places.
What I'm hearing is, and I think this is a fundamental truth, is don't feel the pressure or the weight of having to fix each other or fix
Exactly.
the problem. Just be with each other in
Right.
the problem. Because a lot of times, and men, I'm sure women too, you want to get in there and like, here's the problem, let's tackle it, let's fix it and it can, we know that there's no quick fix to this. So what I'm hearing is whether it's not taking counselor's advice or not trying to make you feel better, but what you did do is you didn't take the responsibility for making the other person whole again. You just walked through it with them, which I think is beautiful.
Right. I think that's and we didn't do it by textbook.
Right.
We just did it
Yeah.
because that's what
Yeah.
happened, one step at a time.
Well, you've said it twice already in this interview. You survived. So, I love that you're willing to say that, because I think, especially for those in the Christian world, the culture of the Christian faith, there's a pressure to get it right,
Sure.
to grieve right, to go through life right. I'm using air quotes for those who aren't watching. And there's no right.
There is no
There's
right.
no balance.
No.
There's no, it's not clean. It's messy. It's hard. There's all kinds of rough edges to our lives. And the fact that you were able to just keep moving forward and let life happen. You didn't stagnate. You didn't stop because of your pain. You kept going forward. You actually had another child, correct?
We did, yes. Our youngest child, Lucas, was born about 14 months after Noah died. So that was a whole nother.
I can imagine. Another episode.
Yes. So, but Lucas means bringer of light.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
I just just really knew that
redemption
he's our
there.
gift from God. And it's been amazing because since he was young, people will ask, how many siblings do you have? And the normal answer probably would have been 3 because he does have 3 living siblings. But for Luke, it's always 5. He always remembers Noah and Alex before Noah. And so he's just grown up in a completely different reality than his siblings.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of faith, is it allows us to connect some dots to things. And I know your son now as a young adult, and knowing more about your backstory and connecting that with Luke today, man, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Like I'm sort of goosebumping right now, like, because I really didn't put that together. I didn't understand the timeline that well, and so now Luke makes a lot more sense.
Go ahead. Glad you do.
No, and Luke is one of the guys who edits these videos, so he's hearing all this. But he is a special young man, and he has just a brilliance to him and a curiosity about life, and he's a seeker of truth. And so I'm looking at all that stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that so makes sense now. Why God would send you Luke? Because he is really a light bringer. So that's cool. Robert, you have any last thoughts here?
No, I so appreciate you guys being brave. This is really difficult to talk about. And I think just the fact that you're here and willing to talk about it gives hope to other people that not only can they talk about it, but because there is healing in talking about it, but also those that are walking through people with grief, knowing that just being present with them, you guys being brave enough to share your story, I think is going to encourage a lot of people. So thank you for showing that and being vulnerable with us.
I think the one topic or one last thought is ours was medical. Other people lose in other ways, like I said, car accidents, who knows what. And it doesn't matter. The one thing Ann learned was you could be 80 years old and you lose a daughter that's 50.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't change. There isn't that baby mother or, I'm older now, I'm not. No. Parents are parents.
Yeah. Losing a child.
Losing a child is
traumatic.
The same degree in your heart, no matter of the age.
Yeah. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, we've been talking with Joey and Ann Ciccoline. We've been really remembering your story and Noah. And in that moment of grief, there is a darkness, and it may seem like that darkness will never fade, but it does, and the light does come back. And thank you for your story. We are grateful to have you in the studio today. God bless.
Brad, I'm a foodie, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to tell you about this awesome coffee experience. It's called CJ's Coffee Culture and Community. It is a faith-run coffee culture, and the thing that's really cool about this is that they roast their own beans, they have delicious coffees, and they have 2 brick and mortar, so 2 coffee bars, as well as a virtual location at cjscoffeecafe.com. Here's the cool thing. They ship their beans, they ship their coffee anywhere in the world, so you don't just have to be in Texas to enjoy it. CJ's Coffee Culture and Community. Awesome.
I almost feel like we were supposed to be quiet a little bit.
I was about to say, there's not a, they used the right word when we were just kind of signing off with them about remembrance. And I think that's, that's what we did and we reflected, and there's something sacred about that. You don't feel like being a radio announcer at the end of that and bumpering it. So, but I am grateful that they shared that very difficult time with us. And I think it's going to bring encouragement to a lot of people and inspiration to those of us to reach out to those that are walking through it.
Yeah, I think for me, thinking about our audience and giving some practical sort of suggestions for the people in your life who may be grieving, listening to their story about Noah, it reminded me that instead of being afraid to talk with someone who's grieving, it's probably the most important time to engage.
To become that safe place.
let them tell the story.
Yeah.
Even if you've heard it 20 times, like that's part of their grieving. As I listen to them telling the story, not forgetting, not ignoring, not moving on is vital for them to grieve.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to misunderstand that if you're on the outside looking in. You're thinking, well, they need to move on and, quote, they need closure. But they don't. They don't need closure. They need to remember they need to grieve.
Right. That's exactly right. It's kind of like building an altar, like in the old, you know what I mean? It's like you don't walk past it and just go, well, that was that. I mean, it's important to spend the time, build an altar. I mean, not literally, maybe literally, but to just mark it, because it's an opportunity for God to transform our lives and everyone around us too. So it's important to pay attention to that.
It is. And really, I want to thank both Joey and Ann for their courage to come on the show and open themselves up like that, to remember that stuff is painful and is a risk. So I'm grateful for their courage.
Me too.
Well, Robert, 99 episodes.
Yeah.
Long journey.
Long journey.
And you are to blame.
Or be credited.
Or credited.
Depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on our 100th episode. Is that going to be a special one?
You know,
they're all special.
Yeah, I mean, they have all been special, but, you know, I've heard that it will be quite special.
So you guys are going to have to join us again next week and see what's in store for our 100th episode.
100th episode is kind of a milestone, as you were talking about. That's a standing stone, an Ebenezer stone,
there you
as
go.
they talked about in the Old Testament.
That's right, Pastor.
For those who've been listening and you may want to find out more about what we do and why we do it, you can go to brilliantlybraveparenting.com. We have an About section where you can read all the dirt on Robert and myself and find out who we are, what we do, and why we're qualified to be on this show. And you can also donate if you feel led to. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Our hope is to encourage and equip families in a post-Christian culture.
And while you're at it, whatever podcast platform you're on, click that subscribe button, and a few likes would do us good. 5 stars is what Brad always says. And I'll just say, have integrity and do what's on your heart. But we hope you have a great week, and we're looking forward to spending some time with you again next week.
Be encouraged, parents. You are not alone. In Paul's letter to his son in the faith, Timothy, he writes, "But I am not ashamed, for I know whom I have believed, and I am convinced that he is able to guard until that day what has been entrusted to me." Brilliantly Brave Parenting wants to be an encouragement and support that parents can rely on. Would you consider liking us and sharing us with a friend? As a part of the Tween Gospel Alliance, we are a nonprofit organization dependent on the support of friends like you. Thanks for stopping by. We'll be right here next week.
You know, Robert, every parent, every pastor is looking for resources that are new and insightful for their kids.
So true. So where do we go?
Well, with the advent of iShineLive.com, we have a web store. And in that web store, we've got resources.
Like what?
We've got resources like Bibles. We've got devotionals. We even have journals for kids.
Do you have music?
We do have music.
And video?
Absolutely.
Wow.
And everything's been designed for the preteen and tween in your life.
Who needs Amazon? iShineLive.com.
Check it out.